The Lunchroom. Informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International for Tuesday, the 19th of August, 2025. And this is program number 1430 of the Lunchroom here on RCI. Of course, I'm your host, Calix George Jr. And you could be following us on our FM frequency, 101.1, but you can also get us at our website, that is rcisaintlucia.com, and we are also streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, if you want to interact with us here and tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Don't be shy and let us hear your voices. Again, that number 452-3046. You can also reach us on our WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. And of course, you can message in on our WhatsApp number. You can also call in on our WhatsApp number, whichever you so prefer. And again, that number 724-0008. And of course, you can also send in messages and questions and comments onto our Facebook feed as well in the chat. Hope we can hear from you on that platform. Now, of course, we want to send some birthday greetings out for today. In fact, it is the birthday of two members of Parliament today. They're actually meeting and in the house for their birthdays. And those are the Honorable Emma Hippolyte, the MP for Soufrière Forcé-Jacques, as well as her neighbor to the south, the MP, Member of Parliament for Choiseul Saltibus, Mr. Bradley Felix. So Honorable Bradley Felix and Honorable Emma Hippolyte celebrating their birthdays today. Wish them very happy and blessed birthdays. We also want to send out birthday greetings to Mrs. Ashanti Samuel Marta. Happy birthday to you, Ashanti. And we know you're the cake lady. And we've got lots of various cake designs. So I hope you've already made yourself something very nice. So hopefully you didn't do it on your birthday. It's already done, or maybe it was done for you. So we do hope that you have your cake and eat it too for your birthday. And we also want to send our birthday greetings to Mrs. Hannah Fitz. Happy birthday to you. And wishing you a fantastic and wonderful birthday celebration. And, of course, we look back in time on this day in history, and we go way back to the year 43 BC. Octavian, who was later known as Augustus, compelled the Roman Senate to elect him as a consul on this day in the year 43 BC. In the year 1839 on this day, Louis Daguerre's daguerreotype photographic process with complete working instructions was published free to the world in Paris as a gift from the French government. 1942, on this day during World War II, over 4,000 Canadian and British soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured during a raid on Dieppe in France. In the year 1988, on this day, Iran and Iraq began their ceasefire in their 8-year-old war, and that happened at 11 p.m. On this day in 1988. 1991 on this day, conservative members of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union attempted to depose Mikhail Gorbachev in a coup d'etat. And on this day in the year 2010, Operation Iraqi Freedom wound down as the last of the United States Brigade combat teams crossed the border into Kuwait. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Imagine, sometimes it's feeling like there's only 2 days in the week. Yesterday was Monday, and look at that Friday afternoon. So hear that. Do you have a talent or skill that you can turn into a business idea? Well, don't sleep on you, my youth. Get your business started today. The Youth Economy Agency will guide you, provide funding, Yes, sister. Provide funding plus training to run your business profitably. Yo, go online now to start living the St. Lucian dream. Just one click and boom, you're in business.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Now, in the Parliament of St. Lucia today, in the House of Assembly meeting, there was, of course, some interesting debate as always. And this one was really about prices, the prices of goods, and in particular, the matter of gender equity and gender equality, and of course, ensuring that there are policies in place to be able to support women. And just yesterday, of course, we noted in our history of the day, the United States finally ratifying its constitution to amend it back in, I think, was it the year 1920, to allow for women to have the right to vote. It was not a given once upon a time, just about 105 years ago. So certainly the matter of women and empowerment of women is still an issue that we are seeing today, albeit, of course, there are many out there who are saying that right now we actually do need to be thinking about the endangered species really being the young male. And of course, we'll come to that a little later on. But the focus being on the matter of extending the concessions that were made available to, for women in particular, dealing with their periods. And it's interesting, of course, because women certainly have a very special role and disposition in society, in that they are they're the life givers. They're the ones who bring forward life into this world by virtue of giving birth and carrying children. So they're very, very important roles. And of course, as well, they do have, as a result of their physiological systems, their peculiar periods that they go through. And literally, they have cycles, and they, in fact, have periods every month or so. And so this matter, of course, is a very important one. Just last night, actually, I was listening to a program with Miss Darcel Frederick. I don't know her married name now, but St. Lucian, who many would know as a dancer, professional dancer in ballet, and but she's also now has become a life coach, and she was focusing on an event which she put on recently, looking at the whole issue of preparing oneself for menopause, the period of life beyond being able to give birth, beyond having a period. But certainly for, one could say, somewhere around 30 or so years, the average woman is in that point where they can become fertile and they give birth, and of course they have their periods. And it can become, it's also, it could be a very painful period, but it could also be a very sensitive time. And of course, the issue is one which women, of course, would understand. Men, perhaps we don't understand that very well, but certainly with hormonal changes and all of that, it is certainly something that is tends to be a very sensitive time. And unfortunately, the matter of being able to afford to deal with what comes with a period has been looked at internationally now as one of the very specific situations that women only go through, and how, of course, there needs to be specific action to be able to support women in that regard. And so you may recall that the government sometime, I think 2023, August of 2023, went to the Parliament of St. Lucia and in fact legislated a zero rating of products, sanitary napkins and tampons and pads and the sort for women, for girls and persons who would use them. And of course, the point there, trying to make it more affordable for women in being able to access those particular products. It, of course, has been raised, the whole concept of period poverty. That is the situation that some women find themselves in, and girls may find themselves in, not being able to, continue their day-to-day lives and being disrupted, and of course issues in terms of school, getting to school and having to face that. And that has all come up as a matter of period poverty. So there was that action in 2023. And you would also recall in not so long ago, this year, in fact, was it? In the budget of this year, an announcement coming forward. And I'm saying so because it seems sometimes that these things seem so very far away, even though it was just this year. The government announcing that they would be providing a $250,000 grant or subvention for the purpose of the Ministry of Education to be able to ensure that that schools can in fact have products available to provide to girls at school. If in fact they're in a situation where they have their period, and so that it's something that they can in fact access. And so that step, of course, another measure in terms of trying to promote equity in this regard. And in her presentation today, the Minister of Responsibility for Gender, the Honorable Dr. Virginia Albert Poyot, made the point that it was ironic because she said she was speaking at a conference at a regional level of Latin America and Caribbean ministers. And at that point, she was speaking about St. Lucia's actions with respect to this matter and the applause that was afforded to the country because of this action. And even though we actually have still women being a minority in our cabinet of ministers, in our parliament of St. Lucia, currently only 2 women within the lower house, House of Assembly. And so the point was being made that even though that we have that situation and there was in fact support provided for this, and persons saw that as really commendable, that a male majority cabinet and of course also parliament by a great margin would have in fact supported this move. And so it is certainly a step in the right direction. Maybe one could say, I wouldn't say it's avant-garde because, but maybe for some countries would seem so, because the point was being made that there are so many countries still trying to achieve what St. Lucia has pushed forward to be able to support women in this regard. So certainly a welcome step, albeit it would appear that maybe some politicians are not completely au courant with where things are at. Now, what occurred, in fact, was that the government was, in fact, bringing forward this as legislation, amending the legislation so that there is no sunset. And so originally, in the first instance, it was for a 2-year period. And so today, the legislation was being amended so that this would be something indefinite, that it would continue to exist in a norm, as a norm for moving forward. So certainly welcome. Of course, we heard lots of debate on a lot of other things in terms of the contributions being made by the opposition in this instance, but that was the crux of it in terms of that. And of course, let us hope that on all sides we can see a more enlightened awareness of some of these issues. You'd recall that when this whole matter of the $250,000 subvention came up, one deputy leader of the United Workers' Party, Mr. Guy Joseph, went to town on the matter, almost suggesting that this was a regressive move, this was a backward step, that this was insulting of children, and even went out, in a bit of a frolic, attacking the Minister of Education and casting aspersions. And it would appear that Mr. Joseph was the ignorant one, because I don't think he actually even understood what this whole concept of period poverty was. And so it would appear later on he came and he backtracked, speaking about the whole matter of the amount being provided. $250,000 in his opinion was not enough. So it's interesting, of course, how we see sometimes actions are taken, and of course, politicians sometimes, in some instances, it's just better to come out simply and say, yes, it's a good move, we support it. We wish we could have done it when we were in power, but whatever, make up some story as to why you couldn't have done it. Maybe you'd say blame it on COVID, right? And then move beyond that. But clearly that was not the approach. And unfortunately, I'm not sure that this actually was something that went down pretty well with people who would have been listening to that whole argument rolling forward. So that was one move. Regarding the changes. Of course, there was also an update provided by the Minister for Commerce, Honorable Emma Hippolyte, the birthday lady today. And she went on to speak about some of the reductions that are being witnessed already with respect to the changes in the recent VAT reductions on 70 food items in the supermarkets. And she gave a list based on the data being collected by the Department of Consumer Affairs. She did indicate that even prior to the changes that were made, the inspectors, in fact, did go out and they did collect a lot of information, which was to serve as baseline information. And now, of course, to begin seeing the changes. And so she was able to actually report on reductions that are being witnessed in those, in a number of prices. Now, I haven't gotten the list yet, and I will try to get that list that was being shared by Minister Hippolyte in the Parliament. To be able to see, well, what is the extent of the reductions? Because, that's the other issue too. Yes, we may be seeing reductions, but we also want to know that the reductions are in line as much as possible, almost perfectly with respect to that of the rates that were reduced. Because, sometimes we could see an attempt by a sort of a company sometimes maybe to raise the price and then to reduce the VAT on it, so it becomes a smaller reduction. So we can see these types of instances. And so, of course, that's really where the monitoring is very important. Even that said, though, at the end of it all, the unfortunate reality is that prices of goods and services, we are certainly left up to the vagaries and the fluctuations on the global market. And it is something that we need to be mindful of, because it can potentially be very, very difficult for persons. We are very highly dependent on imports and the importation of food. And so as a result of that, we are, of course, going to see whatever increases and inflationary pressures from the outside being effectively imported. And in fact, just a day ago, ABC News was reporting, and I'll just read this off. Government data this week showed an eye-popping 38% surge in the wholesale price of vegetables in July, the biggest price spike for any product category. Of course, this is out of the United States of America, I should say, straight off. Let me just read that again, coming out of the US ABC News. Government data this week showed an eye-popping 38% surge in the wholesale price of vegetables in July, the biggest price spike for any product category. A continued rise of that magnitude could noticeably hike vegetable prices at restaurants and grocery stores within a matter of months, some analysts told ABC News. But are President Trump's tariff to blame? Analysts still aren't sure. Importers of perishable foods like vegetables face an especially acute challenge because they cannot stockpile products ahead of tariffs, since the fresh produce would rot. Adverse weather may have caused a supply shortage for a host of crops, leading to an upward swing in producer prices. The Trump administration's immigration policy may have also contributed to the rise in wholesale vegetable prices, since a possible worker shortage could have pushed up wages, causing sellers to raise prices in an effort to offset those added costs, some analysts say. And effectively there, a 40% jump in the wholesale price of vegetables in the United States. And that's coming from ABC News. And it is certainly a pretty large, in fact, as one source says, the largest monthly increase ever recorded in a summer month in figures that go back to 1947. So we certainly should be aware of some of these as well, because we do know, I mean, the reality is places are subject to a lot of different threats, and agriculture is one of those sectors. The food sector is very sensitive to the impacts of weather and other shocks. So another major issue, of course, in the United States, I mean, that they're facing right now, and which is one of the potential causes that they're also looking at, is the issue of labor shortages. Because a lot of those farms, whether in Texas or California, all right, a lot of those farms are dependent on workers coming from Latin America. And a lot of those farms are dependent on undocumented immigrants coming from those countries. And some have argued that it might be exploitation, but that the reality is that whether they in fact come in legally or not, the issues with respect to immigration and the scares that have been seen have certainly been causing for a certain level of fear amongst those individuals who would have been looking to get into the United States. And that has helped the United States to be able to maintain prices relatively low in comparison to perhaps other places. So it is a major issue. And of course, labor is a really important aspect of it all. I mean, we can look at, for example, many St. Lucians heading across to Canada in the summer periods to assist on farms in their whole harvest time and what have you. And it's an important issue in the United States as well. So this is very, very, very telling in terms of what's going to happen there. And of course, the United States is also dependent on a lot of products coming from outside of the United States, a lot of products coming from Asia. Just this week, we were comparing the treatment of the United States towards Cuba with that of Vietnam, both countries being led by communist parties, both countries effectively communist. In the case of Vietnam, there was even a whole war which the United States was involved in, unsuccessfully at that, actually, in the 1970s. And so this country now, which in fact, puts forward a sort of a capitalist, communist tinge, is one of the world's leading exporters of a lot of products, coffee and cashews and other products, a lot of which also go to the United States of America, seafood, coming out of Vietnam. And so when these countries are slapped with tariffs of, up 10% and upwards, 20%, 30%, those impacts will certainly be felt at the American consumer. And of course, the reality is that we go shopping, wholesale shopping, supplies brought through the United States of America. So, that's the other side of it, where you get onto the supermarket shelves and we're seeing things, products coming out of Thailand and Vietnam and what have you. The implications there are going to be felt right here in the Caribbean as well. So undoubtedly, the matter of food security is certainly going to be very important, and how we can look at that issue against the backdrop of the vagaries in the world's food production systems, and not just that, and the impacts that we are seeing regarding tariffs by one of the world's, by certainly a country that is the most influential to us, that of the United States. So we're a bit out of time in terms of our dish of the day, so we're going to end it here. And of course, we're going to take in our weather report and then come back to take in some calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
But imagine, sometimes it's feeling like there's only 2 days in the week. Yesterday was Monday, and look at that Friday afternoon. So hear that. Do you have a talent or skill that you can turn into a business idea? Well, don't sleep on you, my youth. Get your business started today. The Youth Economy Agency will guide you. Provide funding. Yes, sister, provide funding. Plus training to run your business profitably. Yo, go online now to start living the St. Lucian dream. Just one click and boom, you're in business.
It's now time for your weather news, brought to you by Island Style.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with the style stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my #1 store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous tiles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and Vieux Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And the weather forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from east near 17 miles per hour or 28 kilometers per hour. Weather, fair skies occasionally becoming cloudy with a few scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. Forecast for the Lesser Antilles. Fair skies occasionally becoming cloudy with widely scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. Tropical weather outlook. A weak tropical wave will cause occasional cloudiness with some widely scattered showers and a possibility of isolated thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the next 24 hours. Another tropical wave located over the Central Atlantic is moving westward near 17 miles per hour or 28 kilometers per hour. Gradual development of this wave is expected during the next few days. And a tropical depression could form towards the end of this week or weekend. This system should be approaching the vicinity of the Leeward Islands on Friday. A third tropical wave located over the far eastern tropical Atlantic continues to proceed. Sorry about that. A third tropical wave located over the eastern Atlantic continues to produce showers and thunderstorms. Development of this wave is possible over the next couple of days as it moves westward near 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. And that was your weather news brought to you by Island Style.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with the style stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my number one store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous tiles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, as I mentioned, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also reach us at our website, at our WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Let's head to the phone lines to take our first call. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Good afternoon, Mr. George.
How are you doing, sir?
Not too bad.
Okay.
I would like to know. When I was growing up, a young man in St. Lucia, a teenager, every year they used to come and take people from St. Lucia to go and cut cane in Florida. They got immigration.
Mm.
And some of them go there to pick apples and oranges, and they go to Boston and pick tobacco. But I don't hear that happening anymore. What, they stopped taking them?
I'm not sure if that actually happens. I've only heard about Canada. I have not heard regarding the United States, taking on persons too much.
Yeah,
they still do. The thing is, they actually still do have temporary programs, temporary work programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think only just maybe a year or two ago, there was discussion regarding sort of starting it back. Because I know not only would they have done it in agriculture, but also in the hospitality sector. And there'll be a number of persons, especially Jamaicans, a lot of Jamaicans heading to the U.S. To work in the hospitality sector, especially
come down to St. Lucia and pick a few of them in St. Lucia.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we have not seen it being as active as compared to other territories. It might be because we have not had a U.S. diplomatic permanent presence physically in St. Lucia. I'm not sure if that's one of the challenges that has been existing. Although we did hear not so long ago statements coming from the U.S. authorities that they were looking at establishing 2 new embassies in the Eastern Caribbean. So we'll have to wait to see if that actually still happens. I mean, we've seen since that was said, that was said prior to the change in administration, and sometimes administrations change and have differences in approach. And
that will change with Trump.
So we don't know. I mean, it may or may not change, but yeah. So we'll have to wait and see how that is actually panning out.
But are they still growing cane in Florida?
Sugarcane? I would imagine that they do, yeah. I would imagine.
But if it's so, I think machine take it over. That's why they not come in and pick those people to go and cut cane.
Maybe.
Because machine take over.
Maybe. But certainly Florida is still an important agricultural producer for a lot of other products, a lot of citrus products, for example. So I think it's...
but it's not easy. That kind of work is a slave work because they don't pay them by the hours. They pay them by the boxes, how many boxes of orange you can pick, how many boxes of apple you can pick, and that's how they pay them. It's very hard work. They go and do that. So if people in their own country, Jamaica, St. Lucia, who have land, don't leave their land and go and work as hard as that in those countries. Try and grow your own thing, do your own thing in your own island.
Yeah, I mean...
That's how I would like to see. We have people coaching those people to work the land in St. Lucia. Don't slave themselves in those countries, Canada and America.
Well, you say all right, caller. Thanks very much. That may be so, but a lot of people still see it as a door opening to head across to the United States of America, and so that's what sometimes occurs. They go into these programs, and then you never know other opportunities may arise through the presence of being in that country, and so they see it. They see it as a stepping stone or stepping stones along the path for them. So we still see lots of people, for example, from a number of Central American countries, which themselves have had in the past a very strong American presence in the agricultural sector, the likes of Honduras and Nicaragua, for example, Costa Rica as well. And you see a lot of immigration from those countries, persons heading to the United States of America. And of course, the desire now from the U.S. is to engage in trying to keep those people out, but not just keeping them out, but also trying to get them, identify them, and send them out of the country. And they've also been looking for third-party countries to partner with, and that has seemingly become a sort of a new step. Would you want to call them penal colonies now? What we're seeing, even African countries, for example, being used for that purpose. Rwanda saw itself as a potential safe haven, third country location for UK. Persons going to the UK and staying there illegally, and of course the UK government wanting to deport them and in some instances or treat them once they've gotten in and they may be seeking asylum, then they would prefer to have them wait outside of the country while their asylum hearings are coming up, and that whole process can take some time. So we're seeing that being done by countries to try to tackle the whole matter of immigration. Of course, a lot of it is driven by other issues, the issues of climate change, for example, that are impacting some countries more than others. And you're seeing effectively climate refugees coming to the fore at this point in time. And let's face it, we've known, if you look back in history, the impact of the environment has always been tremendous in terms of deciding where people live and at what times they've been able to flourish, and of course the impacts of changes in climate over the years. Research that was done recently, for example, in Mexico, what they did was they looked at stalagmites within caves, within these limestone caves, and you were using samples coming out of them to be able to determine the weather, right, at different points in the past, over hundreds and hundreds of years, and they were able to determine that one of the major causes of the collapse of the Mayan Empire was as a result of drought, successive periods of drought, which led to, of course, issues in terms of agricultural productivity and populations collapsing, because, of course, many of these cities and empires depend on the presence of stable agriculture to be able to support a large population. So that's been part of the history. I mean, again, there was a time when people would say that, thousands of years ago, the Sahara was in fact a place of oases, and it was a green Sahara at one point in time. And of course, that is no more. And of course, we've seen how the changes of that period then led later on to the rise of the Nile Valley, Nile River civilization and Egypt. So certainly the impacts of climate change are real, but what is happening, of course, is that this thing is happening at such a very rapid rate that you're seeing it could very well lead to greater pressures in many places, which would then lead to people wanting to find a new place to live, new opportunities, and so they go elsewhere. So we certainly have to be mindful of these types of challenges when we're speaking about what's going on right now across the world, and how we can in fact become more resilient in terms of less reliance on the outside. And of course, one of those areas that is pretty significant in terms of our reliance is that of energy. And we know that nearly all our electricity, which of course is a fundamental requirement for modern society, whether it's your economy or society, it's all tied to the availability of electricity. And we can't live very long without it these days. And of course, being able to move around and get about is also dependent on the very same imported fuel. And that, of course, is a major issue in this regard. And of course, for a small island developing state like ours, the thrust towards becoming less reliant on fossil fuel has certainly been really important. And one of the actions that was brought today as well by the Minister of Finance and Prime Minister was an extension for a third year for solar PV systems by providing a VAT concession so that they're zero rated. So all the necessary equipment to be able to facilitate setting up of solar PV installations, from the racks to the panels to the inverters and the whole set, those are all VAT free. and at least will be so for at least another year, though chances are, based on what the Prime Minister indicated, there will be a new policy coming out regarding the entire matter in the not too distant future. But that's also very important because it then means that, of course, if we can see as a whole the country heading more towards these forms of electricity generation, then it benefits the country in many different at many different levels. One, certainly, it means that we're no longer importing as much. We can reduce on the amount of importation of fossil fuels, which we don't produce currently. It means that we are also helping in terms of the global attempt at trying to reduce on carbon emissions. And that, of course, is a major step that a lot of countries are trying to take. And we're seeing countries like China in particular leading the way in terms of trying to reduce it. But other European countries have done substantial work in trying to be less reliant on generation from fossil fuels. And so that's all very, very important. But our own responsibility in that regard could be assisted in that way. And then, of course, also trying to reduce on the pressure on the grid itself to some degree is another other major benefit towards heading towards that. Because, of course, as your economy grows and you're seeing more and more businesses opening up, more and more interest in hotels. We're seeing quite a lot of interest in hotel construction at this point in time, and more to come. And they take up quite a lot of energy as well. So that energy has to come from somewhere. And so the whole idea of being more resilient when it comes to energy is a very important national imperative at this time. So certainly it is one of the matters that we definitely need to be very keen to see. Also mentioned, in fact, today by the island's Minister of Responsibility for Energy was that the Electricity Supply Act should be amended soon, and it was coming up for first reading again today, and pending, of course, some greater consultation, which is still ongoing, as he indicated on the matter, that there was some level of consultation in the past, but that there were, in fact, others out there who were looking to see some more inputs and some other changes with respect to the new legislation, which effectively is hoping to create an environment within which we can see a lot more of renewable energy sources coming on at a utility scale, at a grid scale. So, albeit it's great to have the solar PV on rooftops, but certainly you need a lot more of that. And of course, you do need some large scale investment. And of course, that investment has to come from somewhere. And if there's a belief that there are players out there who can provide that at affordable rates, then that would be one of the selling points, certainly, in that regard. So that is the thinking. And of course, some countries have certainly shot ahead in this regard. And we look at Barbados, and they are, I think, somewhere close to maybe about nearly 100 megawatts of installed solar and wind, and that is certainly a direction that we would like to be able to see at some point that St. Lucia can get to, where we're seeing certainly much more generation coming from renewable energy sources. Of course, there is that ongoing effort with respect to exploration for geothermal, and that occurring in the Soufrière and Choiseul districts, right? But of course, very tedious process, it would appear, and it certainly is something that is going to take some time to be able to identify the resource, ensure that in fact it is feasible, and then heading towards actual exploitation. Some islands have had perhaps a lead, a head start, and certainly in the case of Dominica, we're seeing that they in fact are looking to take off on I think a 7 megawatt geothermal plant with scaling up later on in terms of their generation there. And as well, the island of Nevis also looking in that direction. There's an operating system in place in Guadeloupe, and so of course we are volcanic islands, and so the hope is that certainly more can be done in terms of geothermal and other sources of energy. Wind too is exactly another one of great interest, and again, we saw some projects unfortunately not getting off the ground for different reasons in the past, but certainly no doubt it is one of those sources that has been utilized pretty successfully, especially if you look at Europe, for example, countries like Denmark and the United Kingdom in the North Sea region. They have invested significantly in offshore wind, albeit, of course, the advantage there is that they have pretty shallow continental shelves to be working with, but certainly that is a major area that they have been utilizing to work in terms of being able to provide their load demands. And so let's hope we can also be heading into that direction in a very big way very, very soon. Now, I did want to talk a little bit about the matter of religion and politics. And we've heard of the idea of the separation of church and state, but I think that is perhaps a pretty big conversation, and one that we definitely do need to have, because every time we get into the silly season, we seem to have a very strong desire of politicians looking to claim that they have the divine right, that they have the right to control who, they have some sort of right on God, that God somehow votes red or yellow. And so people should follow in that direction. And I think it is a very dangerous step. And as with a lot of things, there's a certain language that goes with certain areas. You can sometimes you pull up maybe something online, an online religious sermon, and then you can see that the pastor sounds a certain way, or there's a certain tone and style as to the delivery, and people expect that and they see that as somehow being associated with divinity, and it's dangerous, because of course we then realize that then politicians then take on that tone sometimes in trying to attract individuals to come to them, so that in effect, vote for me because I am the Holy One. I have the one that is without sin. Let's take in a call before we end, though. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lunchroom. And what's on your plate today?
Do you know we're not getting Radio Caribbean and live stream?
You're not getting it on live stream? You're not getting it on, when you say live stream?
On my device, my Google device.
You're not getting us on Facebook?
No, you have, I think it's some French, only French you have. It was there 2 weeks ago, and then Radio Caribbean came back on. And as of last Sunday, you only getting all I take stream it on your Google device is only French you have, like a French radio station, and so the only place you can get Radio Caribbean is on the radio itself.
Okay, but when you say on Google, you're using a radio platform, and is that what you're doing? You're trying to?
No, well, I just speak to my Google device that access to Radio Caribbean International, and that's why I was listening to you all the time.
Ah.
So, but then it's going on like 2 weeks now. It's just a French station that has taken over, so I have to actually follow on a radio itself.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We'll have to look into that. I suspect you're referring to a platform where you can listen to radio, but not on the Facebook Live, because we also are on Facebook.
Yeah. If I just tell it, stream Radio Caribbean International.
Right. Yeah.
When it come on, it's a French station I'm getting.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. But
okay.
They did fix it, but then it messed up. Apparently, I don't know what happened. It could French station come back on again.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely have to let them know about that and see how that can be rectified. Thanks for bringing that up, for sure.
Yeah, because it's when you're on radio, I can listen.
Yes, indeed. And did you have any contribution to make beyond that, or is it?
It is almost 2 o'clock.
Yeah, it is actually, so.
Yeah, 2 o'clock, so any contribution.
Hopefully we'll hear from you again some of the time.
Okay.
Okay. All right then, caller. Have a good one.
Okay. Bye.
Right. So, of course, that conversation about religion and politics, we'll definitely have to continue having that at another time. So, hopefully, of course, it is a big one, like I said. So, we'll have to leave it for later. But we do hope that you'll be able to continue following us here, and we'll see if we can get that rectified for those who are following on that streaming, radio streaming online as well. But in the meantime, do have yourself a very blessed Tuesday. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.